I feel like I'm in love with today's book while simultaneously wanting to break up with it the entire time. I have a lot of complicated, mixed feelings about this book, and this is Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. Now, this book, I would say it feels like how it feels when you're watching a really good Law & Order SVU episode where you know there's something like weird and pervy and creepy and stalky happening, but you're still not sure exactly what's going on, and you need to kind of keep going and find out, and everything you find out just makes it worse and creepier. This book is spooky. It made me nervous. I'm excited to talk about it with you. If you have not been here before, hello, my name is Leah. This is my channel, Dirty Little Literate, where I like to talk about books that make me uncomfortable, whether they're disgusting, disturbing, awkward, etc., what have you. And this book made me uncomfortable in a really good way, where I just kept finding out more and more things that made me just makes your tummy feel weird. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this one. So let's go ahead and get started. So our main character is actually never given a name, but he's telling this story as an adult, and he's reflecting upon his childhood and some creepy, weird events that happened in his childhood that at the time, a lot of it he really didn't connect the dots and wasn't aware of how much danger he was in. But as an adult, all the dots have been connected, and he wants to bring us along on this journey. He's telling you, I'm going to give you all this information with the amount of information that I had at the time. So you're kind of supposed to be just as naive as he would have been in the situation. And yet, because we're adults, as we're reading it, we are connecting the more pervy, creepy, spooky dots. But one of my main critiques with this book, I have a couple, but one of the main ones that is, why I kind of want to break up with it sometimes, because so a lot of the time, the main character, he's recalling events from when he was 6 years old, and I assure you that no 6-year-old thinks and acts the way this 6-year-old does. His level of understanding of things and just, it's not like you can even be like, oh, he's just a mature 6-year-old. I just feel like developmentally, it was just so off. I was like, I don't know any 6-year-olds who, think like this. And his memories that he will have of him when he's 6, the things that stuck out and just how much he's able to visualize every little detail. It just doesn't feel realistic in terms of how memory works either. So that was one big critique, but I'm going to follow that up really quick by saying every time I was not reading this book, I wanted to be reading this book, I was thinking about it a lot. I couldn't wait to get back at it. So even though you're like, oh shit, this 6-year-old feels more like a 14-year-old, just roll with it. Don't be mad at it, because you're going to love this book. I think I really liked this book. Oh, I'm excited. Okay, let's keep going. So as the title of the book suggests, Pen Pal, we're already anticipating something creepy, spooky, pervy with a pen pal. And the way this is introduced into the story, when the main character was 6 years old, his school had an assignment in which the students were supposed to get a balloon and attach it to an envelope, and the envelope contained a letter that they are writing to a stranger, which, hello, don't be having children write to strangers. I feel like, honestly, they might as well have just had them be prison pen pals, because they don't know where this shit is going. And so, they just tell them a couple pieces of information about themselves, oh, I like hiking, whatever, favorite color blue. And they send it off, and they're asking the person who receives the letter after, the balloon goes off on its journey and lands wherever it lands, they're asking that person who finds it to please write back to them and also include a photograph of the location where they found the letter. So the idea is that the students are sent back a bunch of photos, and they're able to kind of have a map of how far all of these balloons were traveling. And so our main character spent a lot of time on his letter. All the students were super stoked on this project, and he's waiting and waiting for a response, and he's seeing the other kids get a response, and he's not getting a response. And eventually, very late in the game, his teacher lets him know he did get a letter, or he got an envelope rather. And much to his disappointment, this person did not write him a letter back, but they did send a photo. However, the photo is really hard to make out. You're not even really sure what you're looking at. So honestly, it's a pretty big disappointment. He was super stoked and it's a letdown. But he actually ends up receiving more photographs than anyone else in his class. He receives nearly 50 photographs from this person over the course of the semester. Ew, why? Just the level of effort that's going into someone talking to a 6-year-old should already warn the teacher, like big red flag, because the teacher is supposed to open all of these letters first. So the fact that this even went as far as it did, like there shouldn't even be the option for this person to send nearly 50 photos. And all the photos are kind of just like, they're blurry, you don't really know what you're looking at. Eventually, our main character just starts stuffing the envelopes in a drawer without even opening them. Second primary critique of this book is the narrator is really jumping around through his different memories of him being a child, which is kind of annoying because he presented this as if he's going to take us along the journey the way it happened to him. So the fact that he's jumping back and forth between the memories is honestly quite annoying. And it does make my job of retelling this story a little more difficult because I don't really want to retell it in the order that he tells it because I feel like he tells it in a kind of crazy order. So, I don't know. I guess I'll tell it in the order he tells it in the sense that I'm just going to randomly, whatever comes to my mind, all the different memories and anecdotes that he shares, I'm just going to shove them at you. But one of the noteworthy ones, which is actually how the book opens, is our main character, when he is 6 years old, he wakes up in the middle of the night and he is in the woods by his house in the dark, like very far out from his house. And he is trying to find the way home. And he is having a very hard time. He's getting lost. He doesn't know why he's there. He doesn't know how he woke up there. He remembers being in bed. He knows that sometimes he goes to the bathroom and won't remember doing that. But this seems pretty extreme. Eventually, he is able to find his way home after a long time, and his mom had called the police, and it's a whole traumatizing event that stays with him through the course of his life. So that is an important piece of information for you to have. So moving right along, I want to talk about the main character's relationship with his best friend, Josh. So they are selling snow cones in their neighborhood, and one day they are going through the money that they made, and our main character notices a dollar bill that looks quite familiar to him. On it, it says 4 stamps. It's a dollar bill that says 4 stamps. Somebody wrote it on there. And the reason that is familiar to him is because he was the one who wrote it on that dollar bill. Back when he sent his first envelope and letter to his pen pal, he included a dollar bill to the pen pal so that they could afford stamps. So we are very aware, like, oh shit, it seems like this person is stalking him and came to buy a snow cone from him, whereas he's like, how cool is it that this dollar bill just circulated its way on back to me? So we're already getting the little pieces and weird tidbits of like, okay, this person is starting to get involved up in his life. If you were thinking, oh, maybe it is just a synchronicity coincidence that the dollar bill made its way back to him. No. Because we find out one day when our main character does decide to go and open the remaining envelopes that he had received, he realizes that he is in all of the pictures. He had thought it was maybe just one. It was a picture he'd looked at before and he'd never noticed, but he was very tiny in the background and it prompted him to want to open the other envelopes. And then he sees he's in the majority of the pictures. Very tiny, not super noticeable. But yeah, so we are quite aware now that this man, this pen pal, is a pervy, creepy child stalker and we're just feeling So after this, he decides to alert his mom to what has happened, and she rightfully is very concerned. And it just so happens that as he's telling her this, she had been going through the mail. She opens one of the envelopes, and inside it is a photo of our main character and his best friend Josh playing the day before. And the clincher is that the envelope doesn't even have a stamp, meaning he put it in their mailbox. Oh. And I think this very likely prompts the next course of action, which is that the mom is like, we're moving. And as they're moving, they can't find their cat. And there is like a crawl space kind of thing under their house where the cat would often hide. And normally they would use the sound of a can opener to bring the cat out, but they'd already packed it away. So the mom has to like crawl under the house. And when she comes out, she does not have the cat, but she's like, we are leaving. They still had boxes of stuff in the house, and she's like, nope, we are leaving right now. And I think they were supposed to move in like a few days or something. So she obviously saw something very concerning, but we don't get to know what it is because our main character didn't get to know. But obviously something's going on. So after the move has been made, our main character quite misses his little kitty. So he convinces his best friend to sneak out with him in the middle of the night. And I'm pretty sure at this point, like, I can't remember if there might not be 6 at this point, but like they're still very young. So they sneak out into the night to go back to his old house. It's not like it's absurdly far away. It's far, but like they can walk there. And they decide to look for the cat around the house. And it just sounds so scary. It's pitch black. They have their flashlights. And our main character crawls under the house. He's not excited about it. But Josh does something weird. He puts a board in front of like the hole that our main character used to climb in, because his thought is if he finds the cat, you don't want the cat to run out and then we can't catch him. So the main character's like, I guess. And meanwhile, Josh decides to go in the house, and they're using walkie-talkies because they're very official, very legit. And so they can hear like what's going on with the other person. And all of the sudden, you are hearing some things that are making us very afraid for Josh, who is in our main character's old house, and he's like commenting on stuff, like all the clothes that had been packed away into boxes are all like up on hangers, and Josh doesn't know that our main character is being stalked. So he's just like, you didn't remember doing that, blah, 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 whatever. All of a sudden, we hear like a loud thump, and then like it sounds like Josh is like being chased, and it's super scary. And then at one point, like Josh is able to whisper something to our main character, so we know he's still alive. There's a whole lot of hubbub, and during this time, our main character realizes that Josh had put the board, like he put it in a way where he couldn't get out. So he can't get out unless Josh like comes and gets him. Josh eventually escapes. But the whole situation is kind of weird because they never really have a conversation where they are clear on what happened or who it was in the house. They're just both spooked and they kind of want to forget it. So is the man living in his house, in his old house? Oh, God. Oh, blah, blah, blah. How many times am I going to do that in this video? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, you know how I'm feeling. So at this point, time passes and years go by, and other weird, creepy anecdotes are sprinkled in. One of the main takeaways is that our main character and his best friend Josh end up going to different schools, and they start to drift apart. And as our main character has gotten older and is now a teenager, I think at this point, I want to say it's like between like 14 and 16, he ends up going to this really shitty, gross movie theater. And while he's there, he actually runs into Josh's sister, who is notorious for being one of the most stunningly gorgeous gals out there. And he's like tripping all over himself. He's like, oh, how's Josh? Even though he's not like really friends with Josh anymore, but he's just so excited to talk to her. And he is somehow able to convince her to go to one of the other upcoming movies that's going to be there. And it's not clear if it's a date or not, but he's so excited. He's going to treat it like a date. And when that time finally comes, he's walking to the movie theater, and there is a car that's driving behind him, and it has this cracked windshield, and it just seems like it's almost trying to scare him, like driving like right behind him while he's walking and just like going super slow. And later he's like, oh, they probably realize I'm going to the movies and it's a horror movie showing, and maybe they're trying to scare me because I'm a horror movie fan. And anyways, so he ends up meeting with Josh's sister. She doesn't really seem to want to talk about it when he asks how Josh is doing, which is kind of a little interesting. We're supposed to have our little discerning eye, like, okay, why does she not want to talk about that? But anyways, she does not bring any of her friends. He hadn't brought any of his. So it does end up like being a date, and they actually have a really great time, and it's very cute. And right before they leave, he has to pee really badly, and he can't wait. So he's like, hey, can you hold on really quick? He goes to pee behind the movie theater, and when he does, he hears a horrible noise. Like, it sounds like a car crash or something to that effect. And so he's scared. So he runs back to Josh's sister. Her name's Veronica, and he sees something horrible. Veronica has been hit by a car. Oh, and at first we think that she's dead, but she does end up like taking a couple little gaspy breaths. And the author describes her injuries in so much detail in terms of like how contorted her body is, to the point where it's so detailed that I actually cannot picture what he's describing at all. Like, the locations of all the limbs just sound so disorienting and like not how you picture a body being, so I couldn't actually envision it. But our main character is obviously traumatized. The car is already gone, but he has a feeling it's the car that was following him earlier with the cracked windshield. So that's what he tells the cops. And he goes to the hospital with Veronica, and she's in surgery, and he's just freaking out. He realizes he has her phone, and he sees her parents are calling her, and he can't answer, and he's just not ready. And so he ends up like putting the phone with her stuff, and like, he's so traumatized. He was so excited. He was like planning on getting his first kiss. And anyway, after this, Veronica does make it out of surgery, and he visits her in the hospital, but she seems to not really want him to be there because she doesn't want him to see her like that. And she tells him this, so he respects her boundary, and he's just thinking about her a lot. And they actually end up texting, and it's kind of strange because she's saying like, yeah, you know, it's hard, but I'm like starting to feel a little better. I want to make it to meet you at the movies next month or in a couple weeks, whatever it is. And you're like, bro, I don't think that that's gonna happen. That doesn't quite make sense. And like, while they're texting, she tells him that she loves him. So the whole vibe of it, you're like, this is kind of weird. What's happening? And when he goes to the movies, she doesn't show up. And there's a man that sits next to him, and like when he's like, oh, I'm saving that seat, like the man just doesn't say anything, doesn't get up, nothing. And so we're like, oh, we got a bad feeling. After Veronica doesn't show up at the movies, she's not responding to any text messages. And so the main character is talking with his mom. He's trying to get in contact with her family. And we find out a whole bunch of other information. We find out two things. We find out that the reason that Veronica did not want to talk about Josh is because Josh ran away a couple years before. So he thought they just kind of drifted apart. Like, no, he's actually missing. And then we find out that Veronica died the last day that our main character went and visited her in the hospital. So she's not been texting him. Who's he been texting? Because he had put her phone in the hospital room, but apparently her parents never got it. So we're just finding all this weird stuff. And I do want to insert a little detail to just make you even a little more feeling about Josh going missing. I guess he wrote a letter saying he was running away. In our very first scene in the book, when our main character woke up in the forest in the middle of the night when the mom had called the police, she had found a note on his bed saying he was running away. And he did not write it. It didn't even have his name spelled correctly. So we know that that's this stalker's vibe to do that sort of thing. So like, he was like texting I love you to the stalker, and so like the stalker is probably the one who told him to go to the movie theater and is sitting by him. It's so horrible. And then he feels horrible knowing that Josh went missing. And there's just all these different things throughout the book are really starting to fall into place. It's blah. Our main character's life is like rough. He lost his best friend. He lost the girl that he was falling for. And the years go by. I honestly want to jump into kind of this main ending part where all the chips fall, because you kind of assume that like the end is going to be like some sort of confrontation between our main character and the stalker. But no, but don't worry, the ending delivers in a way that it is absolutely horrifying. I think with this book in particular, I don't really want to tell you all the different little plot points because I feel like I would like you to read this one and kind of have everything unfold and, I don't know, see like where you're supposed to be connecting the dots yourself. So the narrator is relaying a conversation that he had with his mom as an adult where he finds out a whole host of information that his mom has been sitting on and not telling him that honestly really affects their relationship, because how could she know this and not say anything? And I mean, I get why she didn't say anything. It's pretty bad. Okay, so we find out, I think around 3 years after Josh had gone missing, Josh's dad was doing some construction work near the woods, and he was having to dig these holes in the earth, and at one point he's digging and he's hitting something and he's not able to go further into the ground, so he has to check it out. And I'm not gonna lie, this feels a little too really? Is this really how we're doing it? He stumbles upon a casket, and upon opening it up, he finds something absolutely horrifying. Upon finding what he finds, he calls our main character's mom. What did he find? Okay, so inside he finds Josh's dead body, but unfortunately it does not look like Josh died 3 years ago. Josh looks like he died not very long ago. And it's not just Josh in the coffin. In the coffin, there is a man wrapped around Josh, like kind of on top of him, like wrapped around. It almost looks like he's like hugging him. And the look on Josh's face, you can still see it because he's not that decomposed yet. And he looks horrified. And there's blood. And oh my God, I cannot imagine the dad finding this scene. It just sounds horrific. But you're probably wondering, why the hell is he calling our main character's mom? And on Josh's shirt was pinned a photo. And it was a photo of our main character. Ew, no! So Josh's dad and our main character's mom are looking at the scene and figuring out what's going on, and the dad is horrified, the mom is horrified, everybody's horrified. So basically what it looks like is that the stalker was going to bury Josh, possibly alive. That kind of seems like what was going to happen. And they find bite marks on the stalker's neck and a ton of blood. So it's not Josh's blood, it's the stalker's blood. He had bitten the stalker and hit the jugular vein, and so the man bled out. So it's not fully clear if the stalker was planning on dying with Josh and Josh killed him so that they didn't have to be buried alive together. Okay, because here's the thing. You're going to be like, well, how could he have buried himself alive with Josh? How would that even work? This is the uber effed up part. So Josh's dad starts saying something about, oh my God, I did this. And our main character's mom is like, no, what are you talking about? So a few weeks earlier, Josh's dad was approached by a man who asked him if he could fill in some holes in this land. And Josh's dad was like, sure. He took some money for it. And he actually thought he was cheating the guy because he knew these holes were going to get filled in for one of the jobs he was working on pretty soon. So he honestly felt kind of bad about it. But he took the money and he buried these holes. So we find out that either the man was going to be buried alive with Josh, he wants to die with him and have the dad bury them, or he was gonna dip and have Josh's dad bury him. Either way. Okay, so Josh's dad has to know that he sealed Josh to this fate. And so the horrible part is Josh was buried alive. He had to be there with the stalker's corpse, the dying stalker next to him, on top of him, and be buried alive by his dad. Not that he knew that part, but oh my gosh, what No! Oh my god, I can't get over this. So, what we're thinking is, the reason our main character's photo was pinned onto Josh's body is because he wanted to pretend that Josh was our main character. Which, okay. But why did he pick Josh? Why didn't he just take the main character? That is such a huge question, and that is one that the main character has for sure. And obviously the main character feels so horrible. His best friend and the girl he was falling for are both dead because of this stalker's obsession with him. And what you have to grapple with as well is this man probably had Josh for 3 years, and what was he doing to him in those 3 years? And why decide to finally get rid of him after 3 years? It feels like he must have known that Josh's dad would also be the one working on that work site, filling in those holes eventually. He knew Josh's dad was the one that he was approaching to have him fill the hole. He wanted Josh's dad to bury Josh. But I'm assuming that he also knew that Josh's dad would be working there eventually, because I'm assuming he also wanted Josh's dad to find the body. And that's some sadistic shit. Oh my god, that's so crazy. And okay, so the crazy part is, well, one of 17 crazy parts is that Josh's dad did not want his wife to find out about this, which understandable. This is the most horrifying thing you could imagine happening to your child, and then hearing what the husband's unknowing role in it was as well, especially after their daughter has died at the hands of this same motherfucker. He doesn't want his wife to know, so he tells our main character's mom, he doesn't want this to be out in the open, so she doesn't go to the police. Neither of them go to the police. But the thing is, I get it, but then also, what if he's done things to other people? Maybe having the police investigate would, open other cans of worms that could give other families answers. You don't know. So we're honestly left with a lot of questions in terms of, who was this person? Apparently he just looks like a normal ass dude. Super normal. But, why? What also makes me kind of is typically child predators tend to have a specific age range that they do not deviate from in terms of their preferences. So if this sex offender first identified his potential victim in his new pen pal, who was only 6 years old, the likelihood that he's still pining after him when he's 16 seems a bit strange to me. And yeah, I can't get over, why did he take the friend instead of our main character? And I'm so tired of saying main character. I should have just made up a name for him so I didn't have to keep saying that this whole video. But I'm almost wondering if maybe his level of sadism is, it would be most important to him to torture the person who is, the object of his obsession, which is our main character, and for our main character to feel like it is his fault that this has happened to Josh and Josh's sister. That's pretty torturous. And so maybe that was, the most gratifying thing that he could think of. I don't know. So I always really with creepy people like this in books and movies and shows, I want to know everything about them and how they got to be the way they are, and just, I don't know, did anyone suspect anything? And so in that way, you do not get any answers about who this person was. So that part for me was very unsatisfying. There's also definitely some stuff I didn't mention that's oh, okay. If you're wondering if our narrator's mom is going to tell us what was up with them needing to move immediately after she went into the crawl space under their house, apparently she found multiple bowls of cat food that she had not put there, and it was clear that someone else had been living under their house and feeding their cat. And so it was definitely the pervert. And also, you know, when they went to go and look for the cat in the middle of the night and Josh was commenting on how the clothes had been hung up, I think the pervert was like living there and wanted his little pen pal's clothes hung up. He's probably inhaling them. I don't know. And then also what I would like to note is, you remember at the very beginning of the story when our narrator wakes up in the middle of the woods and doesn't know how he got there? Also worth noting, towards the end of their friendship, when they started falling off, Josh had mentioned that he thinks he must be sleepwalking, and it's alluded to that perhaps he's been waking up in places and doesn't know how he got there. And so we cannot say with any certainty, but, and this is crazy, and like, I don't know how this could be gotten away with, but it seems like the pervert maybe is like going into their rooms at night and taking them and then bringing them out like into the woods, dropping them down, and then walking away because, oh, other point, I just keep remembering all these different little things that I want to put together for you, but I believe the spot where Josh was buried was the spot where our little narrator first woke up in the woods when he was 6, when he didn't know how he got there. Oh gosh. So like I was saying, there's a million different little pieces that start clicking together when you read it, and so we just read it and let them all click together. Oh my gosh. I just want there to be elements of the book that you like don't know about when you're reading it, just some surprises and stuff. So I didn't go over everything here, but one other critique that I want to mention about this book is there are certain things that, like, the amount of time we spent on certain scenes, like discussing the details that did not need to be discussed. Like, there's a whole element of our main character and Josh, they like build this raft and they're constantly making maps, and like the amount of information we get about the rafts and the maps, like, I get it. And the author could get the point across about like where those fall into the story and like why he includes it, like could get it across with much less information. So some of the time it's like, okay, come on, let's pick it up a little bit. So I felt that was not necessarily needed. So I loved this book. I did. I just love wanting to know what's going to happen and wanting more information. And the pacing was pretty good, albeit, you know, stuff about the raft and the occasional details where I'm like, okay, let's keep it going. But it just felt like such a buildup the whole time. I did think it was kind of interesting the way the ending worked, where there wasn't this confrontation with the main character and the pen pal. So I would say that I don't think that anything in the ending was necessarily super expected. Like, oh, I saw that coming. Like, the whole book, you're supposed to know that obviously something's fucked up with the pen pal and he's been watching him. So it's not like, oh, saw that coming. But you do kind of sometimes feel like, okay, we get that every single thing that is mentioned in this book is for a purpose. So like, you know, trying to describe certain things like they're innocuous when we're like, okay, but we know that you're telling us this for a reason, because everything you're relaying is all supposed to connect back to this broader story about the pen pal. So I don't know. It's so interesting because normally when I love a book, I go completely blind to its flaws. And even if I see them, I'm like, no, we're not paying attention to that. And I have no idea why with this one. Like, I don't know why some things just frustrated me more than I normally get frustrated by books that I really like. And yet I also feel like I liked it more than the average book that I like. So it's such a weird relationship. And I actually learned about this book from, I think another booktuber mentioned it, and they were like absolutely obsessed with this book and said they thought about it all the time. So I will say I did have pretty high expectations for it. This is this author's first book, and I think originally this story was kind of like in like creepypasta form and then eventually became this book. But I really do recommend it, and I'm so curious if other people will get annoyed by the same things that I got annoyed by. I did see someone online who was like, what is this 6-year-old? And then also, okay, so when he's 16 and he's thinking Veronica is gonna come meet him at the movies when every single bone in her body is broken, I'm like, okay, so as a 6-year-old you were a genius, but as a 16-year-old you're an absolute idiot. Okay. This book was so good. I really liked it. I hope that you will read it. Please read it. Tell me what you think. Ugh, I still feel so creepy, spookied out. Reading this before bed was scary. Ugh. Honestly, I think I just love a good old-fashioned pervert book. A book about a pervert, like, or books about obsession. So pervert, obsession. If you have a good obsessed pervert book recommendation, I would love to hear it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.